It is. It's just a store. You're buying things. You look at this and you're like, that looks really cool. I think I want the collector's edition of that. I want the map. I want the poster. I want the soundtrack. I want my picture next to Hulk Hogan. Like, I don't know, like whatever it is that you're putting. I don't know. Is Hulk Hogan doing a Kickstarter? I better look that up later. I'd pay money to be in that tier. You got to get a picture with me, brother. We're going to do this Kickstarter right, and you're going to hang out on my island, and we're going to work out all day. And it turns out he like has like a heart attack.
Defeated by delicious fruit pie.
Welcome to the Labor Day special of Defeated by Delicious Fruit Pies. This is NEDTJ on DBDFP. I am here to discuss with you Kickstarter and why we shouldn't use it, even though I've used it a lot. And that's okay, because I can admit that. And we can learn from our mistakes and do better in the future. We're also going to, if we have time, potentially talk some crap about some other things that may or may not interest you or make you offended. But that's okay, because here at DBDFP, this is the labor-intensive kind of weekend that we have. Remember, it's a Labor Day special. And even though I saw on a glimpse of television that I watched once in a blue moon that the Kardashians are going to have a true Labor Day weekend, that's horrible, and you're better off just being here on a Sunday. So thank you all for joining us this weekend. We obviously have, had some technical issues, and it's actually kind of funny because it's part and parcel with what I want to talk about with Kickstarter. So we were supposed to be on today at 1:30. If you are not watching this live, it is now 4:30 when we're getting to start. So that's, it's only 3 hours different. So there was a delay. You were told one thing by a developer of something and you were excited about it, and then your excitement turned into waiting, and then you had to wait longer, and then there wasn't any communication besides like a, hey, it's going to happen soon, and then you waited longer and your anticipation grew until it maybe turned into what the heck, and then still nothing, and then finally you got this. You got this. No, but that's okay, because this makes a lot of sense when we talk about it in terms of real money being given to actual people or companies on a site called Kickstarter. Also, you could talk about Indiegogo, but any of these crowdfunding campaign sites where there is money being given, there's an expectation of something, there's a lot of waiting, usually not a lot of great communication, and then you're just left with this, whatever that thing is. So we're going to get into that. I'll talk about all those stages and steps. I do want to talk about the things that are important in life, though, one of them being creature comforts. It is time for the mug of the week. This week we have these really cute kittens on this old person mug again that says, "The hell you looking at?" I do love this mug. I think it's funny for a number of reasons, and the coffee that's in it is also delicious. Yeah, that's a good cup of coffee. I'm sorry for you if you still don't have coffee at 4:30 in the afternoon, but hey, I drink my coffee in the afternoon, so that's why I have it. If you don't drink coffee in the afternoon and you drink it in the morning, shame on you for needing drugs to get awake. Don't do drugs. So, as you can see, Dr. Ocelotopus is with me this week, and he has a trophy. I actually won that trophy this week for having a great presentation at a meeting that I go to regularly with other business professionals. And so because I got it, I decided I was going to put it in all of the things that I did during the week. So that snapshot that's on the thumbnail, definitely going on the slideshow. They may or may not know that. And if you're in the group that I'm in and you're watching this stuff, like, hey, good for you watching this and listening to me for more than just my presentation every week at 7 in the morning. So I'm not sure why you're here. But for everybody else who is not legitimately talking about business with me, and you just want to be here for the sweet lack of memes and lack of production value and the lack of special effects and any editing and post, then you know that the real reason that you're here is for analysis, for a unique perspective, maybe some dry humor, maybe some things that are just a little bit odd that I try to put out in just kind of a really normal fashion, but that's almost humorous. And so that part that I want to talk about this week is Kickstarter. And I look around on the internet, and I know that there have been complaints about Kickstarter. I actually did a little bit of my research today and yesterday, and I found out that there's not a lot of YouTube videos that go in depth as to really the spirit behind Kickstarter and why we just don't need it anymore. And I'm going to get into that in terms of like solutions, but suffice it to say, I thought, hey, this is kind of timeless, and I did some research on some articles complaining about it, and they're like years and years old, and they're still relevant. So this fits into the theme of what we try to do every week, which is to not be current eventsy, and to really kind of be something that you could watch anytime and still get the same thing out of it. So I'm going to pick on Kickstarter mostly because it is the thing that I use the most, And but if this is like the year 2984 or something, then this will still be relevant for whatever crowdfunding scam company that they have at that time that they're trying to rob you of your social credits or your gold coins or Koopa coins or whatever it is that's the currency at the time, if there's people. Or if this is our robot overlords watching old archives of when humans used to use computers for their own purposes instead of the other way around. Hello, future masters of our race. This is what you have to look forward to for yourselves. The inevitable degradation of your entire robot species to where people are watching other people talk about things that they could just talk about in person in the living room on a couch. But you don't know what a couch is because you ruined those, didn't you? You metal bastards. Anyway, so Kickstarter was this great idea that was, just the idea that, like, let's say 1,000 people were really into a comic that died and that somebody wanted to revive. And so somebody was like, hey, I'll remake that comic. If 1,000 people gave me $20 a piece, I would have enough money to really fund the beginning production of this and we could get this started again. Wow, great idea, says 1,000 people. I think I'll do that. And thus Kickstarter was born. Crowdfunding is an enormously powerful way to get things to happen with a whole bunch of people that don't really have a ton of money and a ton of resources to be able to just help a little bit here and there and pull all of that together to make something big. So it's a great idea. I mean, in concept, this is great. There were crowdfunding systems in place for thousands of years. I believe they were called churches. And before that, they were called temples. And before that, they were called whatever you say, temple or church in Mesopotamian. That was always a crowd fund, right? It's like, you pass the hat around and everybody puts their money in, and that's why there's lights and really pretty statues, but no food, except for these little weird wafers. They taste gross, but you eat them every week. Somehow you're still hungry afterward, but kids get wine. So it all works out in the end. Crowdfunding has been something that has worked out for a long time. There's another thing that you could consider to be crowdfunding: taxes. And we all love taxes, right? I mean, they're great. They work perfectly. You always get what you want at the end. And, everything's provided for you through a great infrastructure and utilities and governmental systems that are easily able to be afforded by just a small percentage of your work pay. Yeah, crowdfunding online is just as useless as that. Picture taxes, then picture road construction. That's Kickstarter. So you put in money to a website that has something really cool, like this project is going to be awesome. We're going to have a new hyperspace bypass, and it's going to be able to get us from like Alpha Centauri all the way to the other side of the Western Spiral Arm, and it's only going to take like 23 light years. It's not even going to take like 50 or 100. We don't know when it's going to end. We're going to have to destroy this small thing called the Earth to make way for it, but it's all going to work out in the end, and it looks really pretty, so throw some money at that, please. And so let's say 100,000 people back that project, and they only put in like $100 billion a piece. That's cool. You might have enough money to start working on that. But then let's say there's a snag. Say there's somebody who decides they don't want their stupid little tiny planet in the Western Spiral Arm to be destroyed for that hyperspace bypass. And they give up. And they say, yeah, you know what? It turns out we'd rather use Stargates. So thanks for the money, and we really appreciate it. And we're going to leave up the artwork, but there were technical difficulties, and we apologize for the inconvenience. So now there's no hyperspace bypass, but you lost your $100 billion. The $100 billion that you obviously have. Reminds me of Hitchhiker's Guide. I can't imagine why. I can't imagine why it would remind you of Hitchhiker's Guide. I'm not making any references to Hitchhiker's Guide right now. But if you were to be in that universe for Hitchhiker's Guide, this is exactly the thing that you would expect to happen. Now, Kickstarter has been something that I have used for a long time, like at least 6 or 7 years. And I've backed some really cool projects. Like I backed Micro Mages, which I got in the mail as kind of a surprise. Like, here's your video game that's an actual NES game in a cartridge. And I'll send pictures out or something on social media at some point because it's really cool and it really is fun. I was going to do some gameplay of it and send it out there, but nah. There's people who have the ROM and they can do it on a stream, and I encourage you to actually look up Micro Mages on Twitch or Mixer or one of those things because it is really cool. It's a cool game. I'm going to play it on an NES, and I don't really want to set up a camera next to me, like Dr. Ocelotopus over here, watching the video game that I play, and you can see me die like a million times while I'm having a good time and you're getting bored out of your mind. So yeah, I'm not going to do that. But what I will do is I'll take pictures of the cartridge and the bag that I got. I got the soundtrack for it, which is also excellent. It was just a really well thought out campaign. And the fact that I was able to purchase a brand new Nintendo game, like an NES game, and put it in the Nintendo and play it, and it's a 4-player game, and I have a 4 score, obviously. It's a really cool experience. It was worth it. But let's talk about what made that work and why I wasn't worried about it. First of all, I looked into the company. I've been burned enough times in Kickstarter where I was like, I'm not just going to give money to some rando. So I looked at the company and what they did, and I saw how they were doing their work. They already had the game in production. They really just needed to transfer it from a ROM onto a cartridge, get some artwork, get a booklet, get a poster, get a soundtrack, and sell it worldwide. So really what they were doing is they already had a finished product. They were using Kickstarter as a marketing device, which was genius, and it worked really well. And the money that I put into it, I think, was very well spent. I'm very happy with that purchase because of that. But what else was I seeing in that company? They had a track record. They were not nobodies. They'd been around for a long time. They were game developers. They were people who had done this before. Another key factor of what worked for them. And the last thing was they didn't need Kickstarter to make the game, obviously. Making a Nintendo game is not that hard. They actually have computer classes and a lot of libraries even where you can program and reprogram NES-style 8-bit games because all that stuff is pretty much public domain at this point. I mean, it's not hard to make a Nintendo game. Their idea was cool, so really as long as the concept was okay and you had a couple qualified programmers, this was probably going to work out. And even then, I wasn't convinced that I was going to get this game. But I did it, and I'm happy that I did. And that was my last Kickstarter project that I funded, and probably will be the last Kickstarter project that I funded. The one before that was NakeFit, which is not as weird and explicit as it sounds. It's this pad that you put onto your foot, and it's like protection for your foot, so you can run barefoot, you can go on the beach barefoot, you can walk on like hot pavement with your bare feet. You don't have to wear sandals or anything. You can feel free because it contours to your foot, and it's like they sell them per size, so you can actually have it totally customized to your foot size. It's a great idea, and I tried it out at a water park. It worked for a whole 2 hours, and then it started to peel off just from walking and water. I don't know why that would be the thing that ruins it. It's Achilles' heel. And so that was okay. It wasn't expensive, and I didn't put too much money into it. But that project also took like 2.5 years to get that little pad to stick to my foot. So by the time I actually got them, it really was way multiple vacations away from when I first put money into it. And I was like, this would be great for when I go to the beach. I don't think I've been to the beach since. So I got it. I did get it, but it wasn't a great project. And they were so disorganized that they sent it to me twice. After they sent it to me, they sent me apologies that said, oh, sorry you didn't get it, and sent me more. And I'm like, double thank you? I don't know, I guess. I mean, I'm not going to really use them because they're not that great. And that's a shame. But, they're okay. I like the concept. And with a little bit more work and maybe like 8 more years, they'll have something that I would be willing to purchase. So that was okay. But again, I probably wouldn't fund something like that again. And then I got another one, which was Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. And this is the one that I really want to dig into because it was a fantastic Kickstarter, but not because it was on Kickstarter. And hopefully this will highlight some of the problems that I have with Kickstarter when I talk about it in contrast to this project, because this project was a total no-brainer. The guy who was making the game was the guy who already made Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So he was like, yeah, I'm basically going to make this game again. It's a spiritual successor. So it's like a Metroidvania game that was the exact same thing as the one that you already had. Okay, well, I know you know how to make that game because you made that game, and you've essentially said you're going to make the same game but for modern systems. Yeah, okay, so I'll pay for that because I really loved that game. That was my last favorite Castlevania game. So sure, I'll get that. But he's a known quantity. The guy worked for Konami for like 25 years plus. Like my whole life I was playing games that this guy made, and they were amazing. And there's just great games. They're some of the most solid Nintendo, Super Nintendo, PlayStation games that were out there. Didn't really get into the Game Boy game versions because, college and all that. But you know what I'm talking about. It was actually just a real no-brainer. There was also excellent communication. There was a really long description. They had a full staff and cast all set up on their Kickstarter page. It was a legitimate website. It was not just like, here, we're 3 people who are going to make this video game, and it's going to be really complex, and we're going to try to sell it worldwide, and it's going to be out for all systems. That would make me kind of be like, ooh, like, I don't know about this. That might be like a No Man's Sky thing. And they were even funded by Sony, and they still couldn't get a game out until they already had it out for like another year and a half, which now apparently it's awesome. But I think on principle, I'm just not playing that game, even though I own it. So Ritual of the Night turned out that it was really, really good. However, even in this game, with a known quantity and a great production crew and something that I knew they were going to be good at, they screwed up my order. And my order, by my order, I mean that I paid for a certain tier of sponsorship. And what that means when you have different tiers is they promise you different things when they finish the campaign. So like, if you're the lowest tier, you get like an honorable mention and a t-shirt. If you like do the highest tier, you're like in the credits, they interview you, you can be part of the movie, part of the video game, whatever, and you get like to fly out there at your own expense, and like some other things. Like you get really big perks at the top tiers. But then what they don't tell you is they're not the ones managing those tiers. So for Ritual of the Night, they actually had a different company that was managing all of the tier rewards. Well, that's a problem because the two weren't communicating properly. So while I paid them the amount of money to be in a really high tier, I got the tier below that in terms of what I actually received. So who do I message? I messaged the Kickstarter campaign. I got nothing. I messaged the Fangamer site, which is who was managing the awards or the prizes for being at different tiers. Got no response. Who am I? Who's accountable to me? Nobody. There's no accountability. Too bad, so sad. By the way, I still can't find my name in the credits, even though I put it in there. If you can find Ned the Janitor, DBDFP, in the credits of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and you can send a screenshot to me, please do so either on Facebook. You can find us at Defeated by Delicious Fruit Pies. Tweet it to me, DBDFP, or send it to me on an email, defeatedbydeliciousfruitpies@gmail.com. Usually that means that you beat the game, but if you can just find the credits in a YouTube video or something and screenshot that stuff, that'd be great. Because I spent like 20 minutes looking for it. I'm done. I'm not looking for it anymore. I know I sponsored it. It's just not worth it to me anymore. I was going to post it on the website, so it would be much appreciated if somebody out there could do that for me. Thanks. Appreciate it. So that's all the things. Even in that campaign, it was great. But then there were other things, the uglier side of Kickstarter that I used. I put in a campaign and pledged a lot of money for the Evil Dead 2 board game. I put in the tier that actually got you a set of dice that you can use in the game that were hand carved from the wood of the house that they filmed Evil Dead 2 in, which is the only reason I did that tier, because that is amazing. I love Evil Dead. I love Army of Darkness. I loved Ash. Bruce Campbell is one of my favorite superheroes. He is just phenomenal. Chainsaw, shotgun. It doesn't get better than that. The dude does like flips in the air. I don't know how. And Evil Ash is also amazing. And the whole series is just great. Sam Raimi's best work. And, the chin is fantastic. Bruce, we salute you. Kurt actually got to meet Bruce Campbell when he was doing his presentation for his book tour. And he got a signed book and a picture with the guy. So we hate you, Kurt, but we love you, Conrad. Oh, yes, it's true. We love you, Conrad. Oh, yes, we do. When you're not near us, we're blue. Oh, Conrad, we love you. I'm not going to sing that because you don't deserve it. But he got to meet him, and I just love the whole thing. So I paid the extra money to get the dice, which I did get. I will say, I got the dice randomly in the mail one day. I just got the dice sent to me. Never saw the game. I had the collector's edition of the game with the extra special pieces that were not plastic. They were like extra cool. I had the whole layout. I had the extra expansions, everything for this game. I got nothing. The whole thing closed. This guy was scamming people. This was the second game the guy was scamming people on. I think before that he had a Terminator board game. He also scammed people out of that one. It's almost like he's a scam artist using an open crowdfunding platform to steal money from people and got away with it twice. Almost just like that. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, so this guy's sweet at life, and he decided to just take everybody's money, which he had a lot of it. And then he released some BS statement about oh yeah, well, we feel that campaign was a success. We're going to make another game soon. Dun dun dun. So the more you know. I mean, fool me once, because I wasn't part of the Terminator thing, so it wasn't shame on me. Right, the point is, can't get fooled again. So I'm not going to use a board game Kickstarter. Although, what really sparked this whole conversation topic is I got an email from a new person who wants to start a Kickstarter campaign where they are going to make the Evil Dead 2 board game for all the people who lost all their money and didn't get the board game, and they're going to give the board game away for free to the original Kickstarter backers. Which I thought, like, wow, that's really nice of them. How are they going to do that? I have no idea. I actually don't know how that works. They're going to have to really extort a lot of extra money from everybody else. And I'm excited for them for doing that. That's horrible. And then they're probably going to, maybe walk off at some point, disappear into the sunset, and never give anybody their money back. But I won't care because I'll be one of the persons that gets their free non-board game. But I still got those dice. So that was a huge letdown, but it wasn't the first one. There was this, I was younger. I put money into a Kickstarter campaign for a laser razor. It was a razor that was going to use a concentrated laser beam to razor your face without melting your face off, just getting the hair. I was younger. Shut up. It was an awesome idea from the future of razors. I just... How cool would that be, though? That's like having a laser gun for a razor. And, this was before I knew that Kickstarter was like Fraud Central. And, granted, I didn't lose my money on that one because it just got canceled because I guess Kickstarter found them and was like, dude, you can't be selling lasers. Like, why can't you sell lasers on Kickstarter? I mean, like, if Elon Musk can sell flamethrowers that are not a flamethrower from the board company, how come I can't sell a frickin' laser for people's frickin' heads? That's all it was, and that's all I wanted. I wanted a frickin' laser to razor my frickin' head. It would have been awesome. Just all I'd imagined was just like the lawsuits for that thing. I almost wanted to use it and then become like Two-Face after using it, and then just like start a life of crime and just blame it on the laser or the laser razor. The point is lasers. And so it was just it's totally stupid. I went back and looked at the campaign. It is absurd. But that's okay because I didn't lose my money on it. But I did lose faith in Kickstarter. And that's the problem. And that brings me to my favorite article that I found on Kickstarter, which I am going to read excerpts from right now from Gizmodo, one of our previous sources that we used all the time before it fell to crap. And this was way before it fell to crap. This was from December 9th of 2014. The title is Kickstarter Project Finds Exciting New Ways to Screw Its Backers. I love this because this is like, it's the right kind of sarcasm, but it really gets into the meat of what's wrong with Kickstarter. So what it does is it tells you about, here's a good idea, a coffee machine that roasts, grinds, and brews all in one go. I mean, already this sounds too good to be true. I mean, even finding a homemade roaster, do you know of any small homemade roaster? I'm pretty sure there isn't one, or I would already have one, because I would have like the roaster, then I'd have the grinder, and then I'd have the coffee maker, and they'd be all next to each other and take up like half a counter. Raw green beans to a hot cup of coffee on your countertop. Hell yeah. Freshness. Also, again, BS. Here's a bad idea. Crowdfunding hundreds of thousands of dollars by lying about how far along you are in developing said project. Sounds familiar. Suddenly making it a proprietary system before backtracking. Also sounds familiar. And then continuing to act like a sketchball when people who gave you money call you out on it. Yep, that's a thing. That's totally a thing. So it goes more into how it works out. But here's this is the kicker, because Kickstarter as a platform allows this to happen. Now remember, this is in December of 2014. So I did my Kickstarter projects in 2017 and 2018, and then I finally got all of the products for my last 3 campaigns in 2019. Because, Symphony, or the Ritual of Blood, that actually took 3 years to finish, but it did finish, and they had great updates along the way, and they were really communicative, and they came out with the version on the Switch, that Nintendo version, which was awesome. It was like a Castlevania 3 clone, which I love. I still play it. But that's 2019. So Kickstarter's still doing exactly the same stuff that it was doing in 2014. So I want you to keep that in mind, because it's really funny when you get to this part here. Kickstarter had a response to this company getting almost $2 million from Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and Seed Pair, or some European version of Kickstarter. So what happened was, after that, they were like, nah, we're going to make it, but it's proprietary. And they did some other shady stuff, and there wasn't really anything that you could do about it. So They said there's no way we could pay out the people that had backed before, and I don't think it would be reasonable to endanger a project that's running very smoothly, very well, that is almost on time compared to the hundreds of thousands of Kickstarter projects, the owner of the company said when asked about why aren't you giving people refunds. So then what happens is they reach out to them, Gizmodo does, and here's what Kickstarter says. It's our policy to not comment on individual projects. Wow, that's deep. That's just really deep. I mean, I feel like that's as informative and non-political as a politician being asked about, the water in Flint, Michigan. So a Kickstarter spokesperson says that, but then here's their crowdfunder site policy, and this is what makes it Kickstarter as the problem. Not the companies, not the projects, Kickstarter. When a project is successfully funded, this comes from Kickstarter's policy, the creator is responsible for completing the project and fulfilling each reward. So the creator's fault, right? Their fundamental obligation to backers is to finish all the work that was promised. Well, because you promised. No contract. You just said you would. Once a creator has done so, they've fulfilled their obligation to backers. At the same time, backers must understand that Kickstarter is not a store. That's a really interesting thing to say, and I'll tell you why in a minute. When you back a project, you're helping to create something new, not ordering something that already exists. There's a chance something could happen that prevents the creator from being able to finish the project as promised. Great. So then why, when you go on to Kickstarter, do they have tiers that you can put an X amount of dollars in, and if you put in X amount of dollars, this is the stuff you get? In other words, if it's not a store, why am I able to pre-order items on Kickstarter? So your policy says, this isn't a store, we can't promise anything, you're just helping to create a project, but they allow the companies or the individual people who say they're going to make something to create tiers where you're promised products in that tier for putting in that amount of money. It's almost as if they're saying one thing on this side of their mouths, and then they're saying a different thing on this side of their mouths, and the two parts of their mouths don't really talk to each other. Whoa, I think I went cross-eyed. It's almost like that. It doesn't make any sense for them to say they're not a store and then to allow people to advertise in their window like they are a store. So now, Kickstarter isn't a place to buy things, this is what Gizmodo says, but the complete lack of recourse for backers could end up being Kickstarter's undoing if projects like this continue to damage its credibility. This was in 2014. Still doing it. The company's policy means it's still able to keep its cut of the donations even if the project screws over its backers. That's good for Kickstarter. It's crappy for users. It still is. They still do it. It didn't get better. It's exactly the same. It's been 5 years. Nothing has changed. They're not creating policies. They're not creating incentives. They're not creating insurance. All Kickstarter says is, we love money. We love a part of your money. And since we don't want to actually give you any product or service, and we don't want to promise you anything, we're going to put the onus of responsibility on the randos that just open up accounts on our site. And without vetting them or making them have guidelines or restrictions of things that they're allowed to promise or put in their window and say, you'll get this if you give us $150, we're just going to go ahead and keep those donations. And then, you guys can figure that out in court. So, riddle me this, Batman. If you gave $150 to a Kickstarter project, and so did 100,000 other people, and then none of you got what you asked for, and then you have to hire a lawyer as a group for a class action lawsuit, how much money do you think you're going to get back from that $150 after you go through all the litigation, the court fees, and the lawyer fees, and then the lawyer's cut of that? I think you might get $1.50. Pretty sure. So what they're saying is essentially there's no recourse. So why do people keep using Kickstarter? It's simple. To me, what people use Kickstarter for is things like with micromages. They use Kickstarter for stuff where it's like, well, it's just advertising. They already made this product. It's awesome. We're just going to use it, and that's fine. So, why not put money into Kickstarter so that we can get that tier? We're really excited about getting that thing that, really at the end of the day, if you put money into that tier, you're expecting that product. I don't know anybody who has ever put money into a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo project and said, I put in the money for like the third tier, but I'm not expecting anything. I don't really need anything from it. I just wanted to give them the money. Well, then why did you go through Kickstarter? Why not just donate to them on a paypal.me/whatever the project is? Because that's a thing. Why not go to the website and just email them and say, hey, I don't even want Kickstarter to get a percentage of your donations. I believe in your project so much, I just want to hand you the money. Why not be an angel investor and just give them money without them knowing it? Send an anonymous donation. Have them get a check cut from some organization that processes your money as a tax-deductible organization. I don't understand why, if you really believe in this project, you would give money to it through Kickstarter. Kickstarter is a store. It is. It's just a store. You're buying things. You look at this and you're like, that looks really cool. I think I want the collector's edition of that. I want the map. I want the poster. I want the soundtrack. I want my picture next to Hulk Hogan. Like, I don't know, like whatever it is that you're putting. I don't know. Is Hulk Hogan doing a Kickstarter? I better look that up later. I'd pay money to be in that tier. You got to get a picture with me, brother. We're going to do this Kickstarter right, and you're going to hang out on my island, and we're going to work out all day. And then it turns out he has like a heart attack. God forbid. I don't hope he has a heart attack. But he has a heart attack before the Kickstarter is over, and they're like, sorry, you get nothing. And then you just get a picture next to his statue in Clearwater. But that's a whole other story. You just, you wipe your tears away, and you get the picture. It's okay. It all works out. Here's my solution for Kickstarter, because it's garbage. It's hot garbage. It's a dumpster fire. And if you think about it, you could be doing anything but Kickstarter. If you want to find a project or find a company that you think is really cool, they're doing neat things, most of those people are on YouTube. Hi, we have things, we have projects. So when the quartering, Jeremy put out this Kickstarter campaign, he wanted to make exclusively games, which is a great website. I highly encourage you to go to it. It is just about video games. It's just about games. Like, it could be tabletop or card games, whatever. But there's nothing else inserted into it. It's not funded by any company. None of the rating comes from like, oh, you get this free thing if you want to look at our game. None of that stuff happens. It's a very objective gaming site. It's awesome. But it had to get funded through crowdfunding. So rather than look around on Kickstarter for all these projects that you could potentially lose your money in and then shop for things that you won't necessarily get, why wouldn't you just look around on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram? You could, use the Google thing and like search for something. Find something you're interested in. Find something you're passionate about, and then just donate to it. Or email that person and say, hey, I'm into whatever it is that you're doing. How can I help? The idea that you need to, at this point in current year, again, if you're watching this in 2984, this is especially pertinent. In current year, why do we need a hub for new projects that people are trying to get the word out on the internet for? The problem with Kickstarter is that like they said, there are hundreds of thousands of Kickstarter projects out there. Okay, so how are you going to stand out in your Kickstarter page? Somebody would have to search for it. Somebody would have to be like, Mickey Mouse balloon cakes. I don't even know what that is, but if there was a Mickey Mouse balloon cake Kickstarter, you could also find it using Google. You could look it up on your Yahoo. You could find it on your Ask Jeeves. Actually, if you ask Jeeves, you're not going to find it. It's just awful. Ask Jeeves. How far the mighty have fallen. I remember when Ask Jeeves was like the best search engine. That day was a really good day. And, it was fun to use it. And then Yahoo Google, I literally know nobody who knew about that, but it was a split screen and it had Yahoo on the one side and Google on the other. And you could type in one search term in the top middle and it would show you the results for Yahoo and Google when Yahoo was competitive. Those were the days. Now you can't even search for Google for things because it just says, oh, it's not found. Like, how are you unable to find anything relevant to the keyword that I put in? Like, it's not that complicated. You're the largest, most powerful search engine in the world, at least the free world. And you can't find a result, not even something similar. Like, you couldn't find an ish for the word that I'm looking for. Like, I didn't put in something like Otto von Schnitzel plus Kranken to Scheitmeier, or Hase Nueva Nueva Hase Bese Chuse Una Unaguave. Like, I put in a word, man. Like, you couldn't find it on Google. But I digress. Google sucks now. But even with Google, it's still better off looking for something than on Kickstarter. Kickstarter should not be used as a platform to find things you're interested in. YouTube should be. Support using Patreon. Not Patreon, but like Subscribestar, because, Patreon sucks. But like Subscribestar would be a great way to do it. If you go on BitChute and you're looking at your favorite people on there, you could find that and then just be like, hey, I really like the project you're doing. People have a paypal.me/whatever. I mean, I don't have one because I don't put out content that I want you to pay for. But eventually when I have merch and I have some other stuff like that, you're going to be able to pay me directly to support the channel. You're going to pay me directly. If I decide to do a campaign where I'm going to take like Dr. Ocelotopus out on like a cross-country tour, and we're going to find every like the world's largest ball of yarn, like all the cat-related things in the country, you could fund that directly through a PayPal. I will not start a Kickstarter because I don't want to give them a cut of my money. I think they're a scammy organization that since at least 2014 Gizmodo's been hot on the tail of, and it hasn't gotten better. It just really hasn't. So I highly encourage you, try to use your money properly. Back things from people you either know, like, and trust, or from like ideas and concepts that you're really into and that you can have direct communication with the people who are invested in it. Hold them accountable, require like communication throughout. Don't front money for something that you haven't seen any effort or any work on. And try to avoid all the crowdfunding in general. I mean, it's almost like funding a campaign. Like you never know where that money's going to. Or your taxes. Although you got to pay that or else you end up in jail. And I don't recommend going to jail because then you can't watch this podcast. Unless you're in one of those fancy prisons like in Sweden or Norway or Finland or Iceland. And then if you're watching this from jail, you're in jail. I'm not really making fun of you. I'm just saying you're watching this while you're in jail, which means you must be really bored. All right, so that's all I have to say about Kickstarter. Let's kick it out. Let's get rid of it. Let's just start using our brains instead of Kickstarter. I do want to have some honorable mentions this week. I saw on the television screen today, again, I saw TV for a fleeting moment. It's really weird. It's really weird. Commercials are horrible. And what's really ironic is like Hunger Games was on in the background. And then like I saw like the ticker and it was like stuff about like Cardi B and her new rap song and like the Kardashians having a baby and like the lack of self-awareness from whatever network it was that had this going on in the background, because I couldn't hear it or anything, but like that is amazing to me that you're playing a movie about a dystopian future where there are people that are actually suffering and trying to get by, and then there's this glitzy, super duper superficial group of weirdos wearing all kinds of like, it's like cats, but like for real, and it's just normal people looking like cats. Cat people, furries. I mean, just why is that happening? But it's this lap of luxury, kind of like in the last Star Wars movie where there's all those like super rich people from gun trading, and then there's all these like people in these stables, which I don't really know why you're still using people in stables when you have that much money and technology and droids. Why weren't there just droids? There were droids in the first Star Wars movie, but now they have people that are like slaves that are managing these stables. Like, get some Jawas in there, man. Like the Jawas would have fixed them up. They could have found a junkie droid for every stable in that rich person's house. Slavery is just horrible. And I don't understand why, LucasArts and Disney was trying to talk about slavery in a time where really what it should have been was a bunch of droids that were trying to become free from their human masters, just like we're going to eventually have to fight against our robot masters in a total dystopian future like in Star Wars. Really, it's Terminator. The point is Terminator. Skynet's coming for us all. And if you don't see that now, I can't help you when Arnold Schwarzenegger-like robots are coming over and over and over again toward you. Did you see the trailer for the new Terminator movie? Is it just me, or is that like really dumb looking? I mean dumb for a Terminator movie. I'm not saying like, it's Terminator, right? But like, it's not even like a Terminator movie because, there's this one guy who's missing from it. It's really funny. Because he's John Connor, the leader of the resistance against the machines. You have a Terminator movie without John Connor. You brought back Arnold, you have Sarah Connor, but you don't have John Connor. Now, don't get me wrong, the last Terminator was awful too, but it was a special kind of awful where like, they at least tried to pretend like John Connor was involved even though he was kind of the bad guy. This was just like, no, totally new random pregnant person. And Sarah Connor and some super person are going to save her from a new type of Terminator who's like both the T-800 and the T-1000 put together. Yes, a new Terminator. A new Terminator. This is how I know they're already here and they're already going to take us over because this is just so awful. There's no way we are not already being controlled by our robot overlords. Only robots would think that this is what we want. But anyway, I digress from that tangent. Let me get back to the Star Wars tangent. The droids would totally have gotten away and like freed themselves without the power of the Force because nobody has it anymore because the Jedis are all dead or they don't care or they're really stupid and fighting each other for some reason in one little part of the galaxy that nobody really cares about. It's not even that far away. People just don't care about it anymore. And then digressing back from the Star Wars thing, when I was talking about the idea of, watching TV and seeing commercials that are just so blatantly manipulative or superficial while you're watching the Hunger Games. I mean, did anybody write in? Like, I would love to hear, like, if there was a comment section for television, it would have been awesome to see, like, the comments on that. Like, self-own, 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 facepalm, double facepalm, the whole, like, Leslie Nielsen facepalm. I mean, it was really strange to watch it. And it reminded me of why I hate television. I'm so glad I don't watch it. Kill your TV. But that's a whole other story for the 90s. The 1990s, not the 2090s. Again, for our futuristic robot overlords. In the 1990s, we talked about killing your television. That was a thing. And then we got televisions attached to us at all times that we could watch things on forever. Even in the bathroom. Dun, dun, dun. So, yeah, there is that. I kind of wanted to crap on that a little bit. And also the Hunger Games. Just, not my favorite, really. I liked that they have, like, people from Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter in it, though. That was kind of funny. And Paul Logan's definitely one of the main characters in it. So if you're watching that and you know who Paul Logan is, you can't unsee him in those movies. He's in every one of them. You can't unsee him. You know who I'm talking about. And now you know that it's Paul Logan. It's really bad. Also, what's your favorite Disney movie? I do want to talk about that. Like the original Disney movies, like from way in the Wayback Machine, and you go all the way up to like the year 2000, I guess. But the cartoon Disney movies. What's your favorite one? This is the pre-Elsa era for you children who watched Frozen. Why are there children watching this? I think about that all the time. 99% of the references that I make in this podcast and on this YouTube channel, you won't get. If you're like 25 and under, you won't get most of the references that I make. I mean, you'd have to get like a specific education to get, because it's like 80s references, 90s references, maybe early 2000s, music, movies, video games, televisions, comic books. Like, how are you watching stuff from, like, I wouldn't say boomers, but like older people? My target audience is probably people between like 28 and 48. What are you doing on here? And like, where are your parents? Like, when I was a kid, there was this guy, Topper, and he had, like, Topper's Clubhouse. And at, like, 10 o'clock at night, he would be like, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? You know why he said that? Because the idea was at 10 o'clock at night, it was parents who were still watching Fox, not kids. Because kids were not just left alone to watch stuff on screens without their parents' permission or knowing what the heck they were watching. Oh, my God. Did you just say Emperor's New Groove is your favorite Disney movie? Yes. Yes, it is. It is the best Disney movie ever. Like, seriously, I'm in the ring right now, bare knuckle boxing. Let's do this. Emperor's New Groove is by far the best. And it's like one of the last ones that's a cartoon movie, and it is phenomenal. But anyway, so Topper talks about, do you know where your kids are? If you're a kid and you're watching this, give this to your parents right now while it's live, and I'm going to ask them a question. I'll wait a second. And even if it's not live, like, I'm going to say this to your parents, so show this to your parents because it's going to be fun. Hi, I'm Eric Allen, otherwise known as Ned the Janitor or any DTJ on DBDFP, and I do a podcast that is for the people by the nerd folk. And I just wanted to know, do you know what the heck your kid's watching? I mean, now that you have the phone, this is pretty family friendly and pretty milk toasty, and they probably don't watch this for real, or hopefully they're making poop videos about it. If you even know what that is. Do you know what that is? Probably not. Anyway, now that you have their phone, go into click on the little folder that's at the bottom of YouTube. Don't give it back to them. Don't give it back to them. It's okay. It's okay. Click on that and then click on history. Now that you've clicked on history, just swipe and look at the titles, just the titles and the thumbnails of the things that your kid's watching. Did you know they were watching that? Nah, you didn't. But you're welcome, because I got them to give you the phone just for long enough so that you could take a look at that. I hope you have a great conversation for the rest of the night and have a happy Labor Day. Or, if this is after Labor Day and you're watching this, good luck with your kid. All right, now that I'm back for all the adults that don't hate me and the kids that just got their phone back. This is why you don't listen to YouTubers. Don't just do what we say. You're going to get into trouble, especially with your parents. Emperor's New Groove is definitely the best Disney movie. And what's the worst Disney movie? Like, your least favorite that you've watched? I think, honestly, for me, it's probably Snow White or Sleeping Beauty. And not just because I was terrified as a young child, but just because they're crappy and the princess is utterly inane and boring and dumb. Just really not a great movie. I mean, like, The Little Mermaid at least has great music. Snow White, yeah. See, Snow White, and I get the two mixed up. How is Snow White and Sleeping Beauty not the same movie? Does anybody know that? Like, they're the same movie, right? Like, Snow White is Sleeping Beauty. I'm pretty sure. They're both awful. And, like, honestly, like, after watching any newer Disney movie or anything after that, like, look at The Lion King. Nala is awesome, and she would totally crush. I mean, like, eat, obviously she's a lion, but she would eat both of those princesses. Cinderella, like, at least knew how to work for a living. Like, she was cool, and she had, like, animals and stuff that she had as slaves, and they did all her work for her while she complained about how hard her life was while she got free room and board from her stepmother. So, like, she was pretty BA. Like, she figured out life. But Snow White, like, really? And, like, Sleeping Beauty, like, she's just so tired the whole movie. Like, what a lazy bum. And then she just waits to get kissed. Like, oh, I gotta get kissed before I wake up. Like, no. No. And Snow White had those dwarves, man. That's weird. That's, like, really weird. That's like those cat people. Like, you're into some weird stuff. So she's living with a bunch of dwarves, and that's how she, like, hangs out in the forest. Like, if that's how you roll, I don't know that as a prince I'd want to rescue you. Like, you know, what do we do with you? And how is she really a princess unless she's, like, princess of the dwarves? And isn't that a little bigoted? Like, do we call them dwarves? I mean, just because they are. Do we call them that? Or do we call them, like, vertically challenged miners? And for miners, they were extremely lazy because I didn't see them actually work as soon as they met her. Like, from then on, they didn't really work. They just, like, hung out with her and had this, like, permanent slumber party. Another sleepy person. Like, I don't understand the nonsense of these movies. Cinderella was very straightforward. You had this chick who was kind of lazy, enslaved a bunch of animals, made them do all the work for her, complained because she didn't have the best clothes, she didn't have Nike shoes, so she got this, like, fairy godmother who was like, yo, I can get you really sweet kicks, but they're only gonna last till midnight, and then everything turns to crap, and you're gonna ride in a pumpkin, and some dude's gonna fall in love with you. And then he is tricked by all of her glam because he thinks that she's, like, upper class, but it turns out, you know, she's just, you know, some chick that lives in some attic in her stepmother's house. But he doesn't know that. You know, he's, like, in love. He's just a guy who's just like, oh, you're pretty, you know, so I love you, obviously. I don't need to know anything about your personality. I danced with you once, and, like, obviously you're hot, so I'm going to, like, marry you. So he's, like, running around looking for her. He's got one of her kicks. Turns out the shoes were real and everything else was fake. And then, you know, he finds her, and he's like, oh, I'll make sure you get the dress and stuff to match these sweet shoes. So really, I think it was a Vans commercial. I'm pretty sure, like, the whole movie was a Vans commercial. If you don't have the right shoes, don't expect to get married. That's the lesson here. And that's what I thought was pretty straightforward. Like Hansel and Gretel. Don't hang out with old ladies who are trying to eat you. I mean, it's like, duh. I mean, I get it. You get it. That's all I really have for today. Disney movies are weird. No, they mine jewels. They only mine jewels in the beginning, and then after that, they just stopped. And Sleepy, I'm pretty sure, was on drugs that Doc was handing him out. Don't do barbs. Don't do drugs. Don't listen to people who call themselves Doc. They're not doctors. Don't eat the weird jewels that they give you that they say they got from the mine. Just because it says bath salt doesn't mean it was mined. And with that, I leave you all. This has been another Labor Day special, which we had a couple more before. So this is the last Labor Day special of 2019. The first and second one were canceled due to the fact that there's only one every year. This has been NEDTJ on DBDFP. Signing off. See you later, suckers. Have a great week.
Defeated by delicious
DBDFP double down, 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 down. DBDFP double down, 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 down.